She was a Haitian immigrant making the most of her American dream.
She was very driven.
How'd the test go?
I got an A.
She was beautiful and smart, excited about her future.
And she was thrilled to be starting a family.
He had swept her off of her feet.
Next thing you know, baby was on the way.
It was such a wonderful and exciting time.
You got something for me?
Until her father vanishes under mysterious circumstances.
I can't find your dad. I don't know what's going on.
His phone's there, his wallet's there.
There are traces of blood.
What could have happened in that room?
The search for answers leads to more questions.
No one had seen her in days.
There's something wrong with her phone.
She was only sending text messages.
We may have 2 missing people here.
But only for so long.
She's like, what is happening to my family?
Can crazy be so easily hidden?
There was absolutely no reason for this.
June 9th, 2018. It's Saturday night in Hollywood, Florida, a sprawling Miami suburb of 150,000 that's considered one of the most diverse cities in the U.S.
We have people from the Caribbean islands, from Cuba, Brazil, Haiti, from all over different parts of the world.
Hollywood is a place that people come to seek the American dream.
And one Haitian family, the Bernards, have built a happy life for themselves in their adopted home.
Family is just so important to them. It's really the core of everything they do.
That's why when Vivian Bernard gets home around 10 o'clock that night, she's upset with her husband.
Vivian was attending an event for a family friend, and she expected her husband, Roosevelt, to be there with her.
Not only did he not show up, he didn't respond to her text messages.
Roosevelt!
She's like, where is he? What is going on?
Roosevelt!
She's ready to give Roosevelt a piece of her mind.
But the house seems empty.
She senses something is wrong.
His phone is there, his wallet is there, and there's no sign of Roosevelt.
Worry mounting, Vivian makes her way through the house and discovers something odd.
Roosevelt! What in the world?
The door to her daughter Martine's old bedroom is locked.
This room hasn't been lived in for quite some time.
Martine lives with her husband, Cassandra, in Fort Lauderdale.
Roosevelt!
Vivian's starting to think this is getting really unusual.
Why are you in Martine's room?
20-year-old Martine was the youngest of the Bernards' 4 children.
Martine was beautiful and smart. She had a vibrant personality.
When she walked into the room, it's like she lit up the place. People always gravitated towards her.
The family had immigrated from Haiti to Florida in the late 90s, seeking a better life for themselves and their children.
Coming to South Florida was a huge accomplishment for the family.
Y'all ready to eat?
Yes, ma'am.
But it was only the beginning.
The Bernards encouraged their children to have big dreams.
I am so proud of you, Martine.
Their goal was to make sure that they took advantages of the economic resources here available to them.
By the time Martine reached her late teens, she felt ready to take on the world.
Martine was a go-getter. She was very driven.
Her confidence commanded attention wherever she went.
And Martine's confidence soon caught the eye of a classmate named Cassandra Splunk.
She met Cassandra in high school, and it was that magnetic personality and her beauty that attracted him to her.
They also had a lot in common.
They were both of Haitian ethnicity.
The two started dating and quickly became an item.
And as they got older, their relationship bloomed and blossomed. They really got to love and respect each other.
But there was a threat looming on the horizon that could keep the young lovers apart.
Cassandra wasn't a citizen.
Hey, babe. What's wrong?
He had an immigration issue.
Got this letter.
Where he would have had to either leave the country or really have some challenges.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Luckily, there was a solution.
Well, we could get married.
You do that for me?
Yes, of course. Come on. Let's do it.
People might think they got married for citizenship reasons, and that is absolutely not the truth.
They ended up moving to an apartment in Broward County, not too far from their parents who lived in Hollywood.
So she maintained that connection with her family.
Martine and Cassandra also started a family of their own.
They were expecting their first child.
Once Martine found out that she was going to be a mother, she immediately started planning for the baby.
It was such a wonderful and exciting time for the young couple.
Are you in here?
But now Martine's father has disappeared from the family's Hollywood, Florida home, and her mother is concerned.
She realizes that, okay, this is very out of character.
There was a key that Roosevelt usually kept for that room, but the key was not there.
She doesn't want to overreact, but her son Ricky is a member of the Hollywood Police Department. So she says, let me just put in a call.
Ricky, this is your mama. I need you to come over. I can't find your daddy. I don't know what's going on. Something just don't seem right.
Ricky and his partner come down to take a look at the house, and nothing immediately is out of the ordinary. Nothing is jumping out as suspicious.
You don't have the key to the door?
We do, but I couldn't find it.
So Ricky's partner decides to go around the outside of the house.
Peeking inside, he doesn't see anything unusual. But to get a better look, he tries the window.
Luckily, the window is unlocked, and he is able to make entry into the room.
When he went inside of the bedroom, nothing at first looked amiss.
It's obvious that this room has not been lived in on a regular basis. There's some furniture there. There's a mattress up against the wall and a bed frame.
He doesn't see any signs of Roosevelt.
But then he notices something.
There are traces of blood throughout the room.
Is the officer looking at a crime scene?
At just 20 years old, Martine Bernard felt like she had everything she wanted. A close relationship with her family, a new marriage to her high school sweetheart, and a baby on the way.
You're a new wife, new husband, and you're going to be parents pretty soon. There's a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of excitement.
She was fully into motherhood and preparing herself for the arrival of their child.
It's gonna be okay, Mama.
But now the child's grandfather, 68-year-old Roosevelt Bernard, has mysteriously disappeared.
He was supposed to meet Martine's mother at a friend's party.
Just relax. You just gotta breathe.
He didn't meet her at the event. He had not returned any of her text messages.
When she arrived home, his car was still there, his keys were still there, but Roosevelt was nowhere to be found, and the bedroom where Martine had lived was locked.
She realizes that this is very out of character. Let me call my son, Ricky, who happens to be an officer.
And when Ricky's partner is able to gain entry to the room, he makes a disturbing discovery.
There's no sign of Roosevelt in the room, but there is blood.
There were spatters of blood on the floor, walls, and even the ceiling.
This may very well be a crime scene.
Now the officer must give Ricky and his mother the grim news.
There's blood in the room.
Blood? Oh, God!
She doesn't know what to think, but she goes into panic mode.
The officer and Martine's brother do a quick search of the rest of the house.
There's still no sign of Roosevelt or anyone else.
After clearing the house, they sat Vivian down to ask her what exactly happened prior to her going to the family function.
She tells them that her husband, and her daughter, Martine, were supposed to attend this function together.
It was a baby shower, and she was excited since she was expecting.
But Martine backed out at the last minute.
Martine texted her and told her she wouldn't be able to make it. She wasn't feeling well.
Can I say I'm pregnant? Get out of it.
Be nice. Martine was looking forward to this. She said she wasn't feeling well.
Martine's mother says that soon after she got Martine's text, her son-in-law Cassandritz dropped by.
Hey, babe.
Okay.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, her son-in-law stopped to pick up a few of Martine's things.
She wanted me to tell you how sorry she is that she's not going to be there today.
Oh, okay. I hope she feels better.
Well, it's been a rough couple of days.
Being 6 months pregnant, there are a lot of physical changes that could cause her to be nauseous.
Poor thing. I ought to go visit her.
Maybe in a couple of days. She said she doesn't really feel like company.
Okay.
Martine's parents chatted with Cassandritz for a while longer.
Then Vivian realized that she needed to start getting ready.
I'm finna go hop in the shower.
Okay, babe.
But when she came back out a while after, Cassandritz was hanging on the couch, but there was no sign of Roosevelt.
Where's Roosevelt?
I'm not sure. Some guy came by.
He tells her that a Hispanic man came to the door requesting to speak with Roosevelt.
He went outside, and according to Cassandritz, that was the last he saw of Roosevelt.
Did they say where they was going?
Didn't say anything.
Vivian was first a little annoyed.
You knew he was trying to get out of going to this thing.
She's thinking, typical, he doesn't want to go to the baby shower.
I got to go. He's just gonna have to meet me there.
She takes off, she heads to the family party, and Cassandritz leaves when she leaves.
She has said that even when her husband did not show up at the event, she never thought that anything would be wrong.
But when Roosevelt wasn't home when she got back, her annoyance turned to worry.
Vivian's mind is racing about what happened to Roosevelt, where he might be.
And now there's blood. This is alarming.
And in her growing panic, a realization hits Martine's mother.
While all of these things are going on, her wheels began to turn.
It's probably nothing.
What, Mama?
Martine had been responding to text messages, but she hadn't physically picked up the phone.
She started to think that something is weird because she has not seen or spoken to Martine in 5 days.
Talking to police about her husband Roosevelt's sudden disappearance, Vivian Bernard has just realized another reason to be concerned. Their daughter Martine has been out of touch for the past several days.
As Vivian is starting to look back and put some pieces together, she's telling Ricky and his partner, wait, I haven't actually seen Martine in a week. We've texted back and forth, but not one physical or verbal interaction has taken place.
She initially didn't think too much of it, but now she's starting to wonder.
Do you think I should report her missing?
You can, but you're going to have to contact Fort Lauderdale PD, their jurisdiction.
Since Martine lives in a neighboring city, the Hollywood police don't have jurisdiction.
I'll get this to the detectives. I love you.
All the Hollywood police are authorized to investigate is Roosevelt's disappearance.
Hey guys. Hey. We got some information.
When Roosevelt's son and his partner hand things over to the detectives, their first step is to contact Roosevelt's son-in-law, Cassandrix.
Cassandrix was one of the last people that saw Roosevelt.
They especially want to hear more about the mystery man that came to the house and spoke to Roosevelt.
When the detectives reach Cassandrix, he agrees to come down to the station.
Appreciate you coming in. Have a seat.
Yeah, of course. Anything I can do to help?
He tells the officers pretty much the same thing he told Vivian. Vivian went back to the room to take a shower, and as he was sitting in the living room speaking with Roosevelt, someone came to the door.
Who could that be?
However, Cassandrix is able to give detectives a few additional details.
He said when he was sitting in the living room, he could see a white van pull up outside the house.
And when Roosevelt answered the door, Cassandrix says he caught a glimpse of the guy standing there.
Have you seen this guy before?
No, I never seen him before.
He said he has no idea who the man is.
But he got the sense that Roosevelt did.
You got something for me?
No, not right now.
I got the feeling that Roosevelt didn't really want me to hear what they were saying.
He says Roosevelt then stepped outside and closed the door behind him.
He never came back inside, and according to Cassandrix, that was the last he saw of Roosevelt.
Could you describe him for us, please?
He was Hispanic, maybe in his 30s, but...
He was well-dressed. He had on slacks. He had on a button-down shirt.
Something just felt off about him.
But like Martine's mom, when Roosevelt didn't come back inside, Cassandrix assumed he was just avoiding the baby shower.
Well, I gotta go. He just gonna have to meet me there.
Cassandrix does confirm that they left the house at the same time.
Cassandrix went his way. Vivian went to her event.
Well, thank you for coming in.
But where had Roosevelt gone? And who was the mysterious Hispanic man Cassandrix saw?
The police put a be on the lookout in the system for Roosevelt, as well as the Hispanic male that was described to them by Cassandrix.
Then the detectives asked Martine's mom to come in for a formal interview.
They have the info that she gave her son and his partner at the scene.
Please have a seat.
But they want to make sure they don't miss anything.
And this time, Martine's mom mentioned something she hadn't before.
She says that there's something kind of odd about her son-in-law's behavior.
She remembers walking out of the bathroom and she sees Cassandrix on the couch.
I didn't mention it at the time, but the more I think about it, the stranger it seems.
Cassandrix was wearing black latex gloves.
Detectives investigating the disappearance of 68-year-old Roosevelt Bernard have just learned that his son-in-law was behaving strangely the day Roosevelt went missing.
One of the odd things that Vivian noticed was that Cassandrix was wearing black latex gloves. And she asked him, what's that all about?
It's this phone. I think the battery's dying. It gets really hot, so I wear these gloves to protect my hand.
She kind of brushed it off at the time. She was in a rush. She wanted to go to the party.
I gotta go. It's good to see you.
But now that Roosevelt's gone missing, she's grown suspicious.
She said there's one other thing that's bothering her too.
After the officers left the night before, she noticed that the family's trash bin that they keep in the alley next to the house was gone.
steals a trash can?
They've got a bloody crime scene, but no body. And a trash can would certainly be large enough to move a person.
Could that explain what happened to Roosevelt?
Maybe Roosevelt and the mystery man came back to the house after Vivian and Cassandra left.
Or could there be another explanation?
Vivian also tells detectives that she's very concerned about her pregnant daughter.
Martine had been responding to text messages, but she hadn't physically picked up the phone to say anything to her mother.
She doesn't know where her husband is, and she's now sort of reassessing text conversations she thought she was having with her daughter.
I know she doesn't feel well. I'm just worried about her.
She's just, understandably, just beyond herself.
Why won't she pick up the phone?
She'd mentioned her concern when her son and his partner were at the house.
But since Martine lives in Fort Lauderdale, she would have to call the police there. And now she's determined to get answers.
She decides that she needs to file a missing persons report.
This way, ma'am.
As Vivian contacts authorities in Fort Lauderdale, detectives investigating Roosevelt's disappearance head to her house to conduct a canvass of the neighborhood.
They start speaking to the neighbors, finding out if anyone saw or heard anything that was out of the ordinary.
Unfortunately, talking to the neighbors doesn't produce any leads.
But they do find a house across the street that's equipped with a doorbell camera.
And that camera allows them to see the front of the Bernard's home.
So the police asked the neighbors, hey, we would really like to review that surveillance video.
The neighbor tells them as soon as they can download it, they're going to get this footage to the detectives.
While waiting for the footage from the Bernard's neighbor, detectives subpoena phone records for both Cassandritz and Martine, including their tower data.
They're not officially investigating Martine's whereabouts, but her mother's comments make them suspect that there could be some connection to Roosevelt's disappearance.
Investigators are saying now we need to see exactly where her phone is.
But before they get the doorbell camera footage or the phone records, their case may take an unexpected turn. It's around 4 a.m. on June 11th, less than 48 hours after Roosevelt disappeared, when one of the Bernard's neighbors makes a call to 911.
They're saying that there's a possible electric fire that's happening in the lot near their home.
Firefighters respond to the scene. A vacant lot not far from the Bernard's house.
They're expecting to see that there's some kind of wire that's down.
They do indeed find a fire, but it's not coming from a down power line.
Instead, it's a dead body that's burning.
Less than 48 hours after Roosevelt Bernard disappeared, firefighters responding to reports of an electrical fire have discovered a dead body near the missing man's home.
The body is badly burned, but they're able to determine that it is an older black man.
Go ahead and start homicide and notify the medical examiner, please.
The part that was on fire was the torso, so they were able to clearly see the face.
Sergeant, what do we got?
Hey, guys.
And when detectives arrive on the scene, their suspicions are confirmed.
They're able to identify the body as Roosevelt Bernard.
He had been shot in the back of the head.
Although it doesn't appear that he died in that vacant lot.
They don't find any shell casings. They don't find anything on that scene that would reveal to them that this is the place where Roosevelt Bernard was killed.
But the detectives believe they know where the shooting occurred.
They're thinking Roosevelt was shot in the bedroom and then moved out of the house into this secondary location.
This is it.
He was wheeled over to the vacant lot in the Bernard's missing trash can.
All right, let's go see Vivian.
Leaving CSIs to finish processing the scene, detectives head back to the Bernard's home.
Police have the unfortunate responsibility of telling Vivian that they found Bernard and that he has been brutally murdered.
We found Roosevelt's body.
I knew it!
As Vivian gets the news, she's very devastated.
What do you mean you knew it?
Look at this text Martine sent me.
She shows the detectives messages that Martine had sent that said her father had been a bad person.
She said some things about him abusing her.
And according to Martine's texts, she decided to do something about it.
She was going to take care of him with the help of a guy named Juan.
You think it's the same guy Cassandra saw?
Could this be possible that Martine had something to do with her father's death?
Or was there something else going on?
Do you have any reason to believe that your husband was abusing Martine?
Of course not!
Given the fact that she still hasn't spoken to her daughter, detectives suspect that this may all be some sort of elaborate ruse.
We'll be in touch, okay?
The answer becomes clear when the detectives receive Martine and Cassandra's phone records.
The text message history showed an incredible amount of detail.
They show all the texts that Martine supposedly sent her family that week, including her alleged confession to her father's murder.
But when they compare the tower data of Cassandra's and Martine's phones, a different story emerges.
Whenever Martine communicated with Cassandra's, her cell phone was always in the same location as his cell phone.
Basically meaning that they are in the same room or in the same proximity when they are communicating with each other.
For the detectives, the reason is obvious.
These are not messages from Martine. These are actually messages from Cassandra's using her phone.
And when detectives receive the surveillance video from the Bernard's neighbor, the rest of Cassandra's story unravels.
The day of the incident, they did see Cassandra's come and then eventually leave with Vivian.
But they don't see Roosevelt leave the house.
They never saw the white van that Cassandra's had told them about. They never saw the Hispanic male that Cassandra's had told them about. At this point, the detectives strongly believe that Cassandra's had something to do with the death of Roosevelt.
And based on what the footage shows a few hours later, detectives know they're on the right track.
They see a vehicle that looks like Cassandra's vehicle come back later the night of Roosevelt's disappearance.
And then they notice a figure who looks an awful lot like Cassandra's getting out of the car.
He heads around the back of the house, then returns wheeling a large garbage bin.
In the video, it's too dark to see where Cassandra's takes the garbage bin.
But it appears to be the direction of the vacant lot.
And when he comes back into the light, he no longer has the bin, but is carrying a trash bag. He gets back into his car and then leaves with it.
And the next night, around 4 a.m., the same car pulls up outside the Bernard's house again.
You can see him going over to that same direction where he pushed the trash bin.
And then just a couple of minutes later, there appears to be a flash, something that looks like fire.
As the flames climb higher, the man in the video hurries back to his car and drives away.
And then that's when you get the call from the neighbor saying that there is a possible electric fire that's happening.
At this point, the detectives believe they have enough evidence to charge Cassandrides with his father-in-law's murder.
But is Roosevelt his only victim?
Police are getting really, really concerned about Martine. They're wondering, oh my God, did he do something to her as well?
Hoping to find out, the detectives decide not to arrest Cassandrides for Roosevelt's murder just yet.
Instead, they set up surveillance at the apartment in Fort Lauderdale, where he lives with Martine.
Cassandrides was followed as he went to Walmart, made a couple of purchases, and went back to his apartment.
Then, after midnight, he starts hauling things out to the dumpster outside the building.
They see Cassandrides coming out of the apartment with a huge black plastic trash bag. He seems to be struggling. But he was able to get it up into the dumpster.
As soon as he walked away, one of the Hollywood officers approached it, opened up the dumpster.
And when they look in that dumpster, their suspicions are confirmed.
31. They found the body of a deceased female.
While police watched, murder suspect Cassandrides Blanc dragged a heavily laden garbage bag out of his Fort Lauderdale apartment and wrestled it into the dumpster outside the building.
When the police saw that Cassandrides had gone back into his apartment, they decided to go ahead and look at what he had discarded in the dumpster.
And unfortunately, what they suspected is the case. Inside the bag is 20-year-old Martine Bernard.
Martine had been shot in the head.
The state of decomposition also suggests that she'd been dead for some time.
The detectives at this point are sure that Cassandrides Blanc is behind the murders.
But they decide to string him along for a bit.
They reach out to him and say, hey, can you come in and bring Martine with you? We want to ask you a few questions.
Cassandrides says, yes, I'll bring her in.
But when he shows up alone.
She basically doesn't want to be out. I told her investigations wants to come see you. I texted her that because her phone isn't, there's something wrong with her phone as far as calling. Mm-hmm.
Police at this point know, oh yeah, he's not telling the truth. This is just a total bull-faced lie.
I told you when I came in here that I wouldn't play games to you. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to do that type of thing. So I want to give you the chance to clear things up.
Police are just like, here's the deal, Cassandrides. We found your wife. We have her body. Not only has she been shot in the head, there are marks looking like someone tried to dismember her, which she clearly did not do on her own.
Cassandrides realizes that his story, they're not buying it, no matter how hard he tries to sell it.
Just let it go. What happened? Cassandrides, what happened? Where did it happen?
My life is done.
Cassandrides finally comes clean and tells the truth about what he had done.
She was hurting me a lot.
He explained that he and his wife had bumped heads for a period of time over what he felt was her being disrespectful to him.
I treated her just like I wanted to be treated. Gave her attention, I gave her respect, so much respect. I did everything I would want to have done to me. And she wasn't doing that.
This is a blow to his ego.
At one point, he confronted her specifically about a week prior.
You know you hurt me, right? told her, you're hurting me, and she asked why, and I explained it to her.
Not this again.
She rolled her eyes, and she just disregarded what I said, and I said, you don't care? And she looked at me in the eye and said, honestly, I don't.
According to Cassandritz, Martine's words festered.
He explained that as the night went on, he became more and more irritated.
Woke up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, and I looked at her sleeping, and I was like, you don't care? So I went into my car, got the gun.
Then he slipped quietly back into their bedroom where Martine slept.
Why you gotta be so hurtful?
He shot his sleeping pregnant wife one time in the head at close range.
I expected it to be that loud. I didn't expect her to be bleeding so much.
He said he felt bad, but he went back to bed and slept until later in the morning. He woke up that morning. She was obviously still dead, and he began to put his plan in motion to dispose of the body.
And when his attempts to dismember and dispose of the body failed, he came up with a new plan.
His plan B was that he was going to need to kill Martine's father, Roosevelt, and then somehow shift blame for her death onto her, basically.
I got the idea because I knew if it came up deceased by another deceased person, it would cancel each other out, and no one's responsible.
She wanted me to tell you how sorry she is that she's not going to be there today.
The baby shower gave him an excuse to stop by the Bernard's house.
And when Martine's mom excused herself to take a shower, he seized the opportunity.
So what Martine say you come over here to get?
She said it was some clothes that she wants that are in her old room.
Oh, let's go see.
He followed Roosevelt into Martine's bedroom. He shot him in the back of the head.
I don't have the guts to do this in front of someone's face.
Then he dragged the body out the window and stashed it in the Bernard's trash bin.
And later, with the police asking questions, he'd gone back to finish the job.
He dragged the body down the road and deposited the father in a vacant lot.
Did you pour gasoline on him?
Yes, sir.
At the end of the police interrogation, Cassandritz is booked on 3 counts of first-degree murder. 1 for his wife, 1 for his father-in-law, and 1 for the murder of his unborn son.
The state wants to seek the death penalty.
But the case will never go to trial.
Cassandra Blanc decided that the best thing for him to do was to take a plea.
Initially, he pled not guilty, but he ended up changing his plea to guilty so that he could avoid the death penalty.
He's sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences.
Cassandritz will never see the light of day for the rest of his life.
In over 20 years in homicide, I've worked many, many violent cases, brutally violent murders. The total lack of compassion that...
She kind of came in late to the basketball scene, but when she came, she was a force.
She was one of the top guards in Memphis, which, got her a scholarship. And something tells me, turn around. So I'll go back to her room, and this time I turn on the lights.
The blood was along the wall, there was blood on the floor, on the bed.
You're really just left with a lot of questions. What went down here in this apartment?
And she kind of shoved me, and I kind of shoved her back.
It was a fire waiting to be started. It just needed the right match.
"30 minutes from Nashville, Murfreesboro, Tennessee is home to Middle Tennessee State University.
MTSU is a commuter college. There are very few people who live on campus, so most students end up renting apartments.
Raiders Crossings Apartments, which is located on South Rutherford. It's maybe about 10 minutes from campus. Just apartments that are normally rented by students who are going to MTSU.
On March 2nd, 2011, at 6:45 p.m., the Murfreesboro Police Department receives a 911 call from the complex.
911 emergency?
Yes, I just need a police dispatcher to go to Raiders Crossing and check in the last building, just knock on the third floor door.
For what?
I heard Ryder.
Please put on a low priority, just because it was not high priority at the time. No one has physically seen anything, just suspicion, so you don't want to rush to a scene like that.
Moments later, a more urgent call comes in.
Hello, 911? Man, where are you at? Where are you at?
He gives the address. It's the same as the first call.
What's going on?
My daughter came and my girl's bleeding to death. Please! Tina, please, keep moving, Tina. Keep moving, Tina. Tina, keep moving, Tina. Oh, Lord. Yeah, somebody call her.
Okay, we've already got police and ambulance on the way.
Now, it's concrete, you know you really got something, so now we got to step it up because someone's in danger. It's time to roll.
When the officers arrive, the male caller meets them outside. He identifies himself as KC Anuna.
He was very distressed and was screaming for help.
I was like, man, someone stabbed my girlfriend, your apartment number.
One of the officers spots a woman ducked behind a row of cars. Then she takes off running.
You're just thinking maybe she done did something or something's going on, because now you don't know.
Officer Brown was able to catch up. He sat her down on the parking lot and began asking her questions. And she immediately just responded that her roommate had been in a fight, was injured, possibly dead, and that she didn't know anything else that was going on.
KC shows a second officer to the apartment.
Officer Christy English ran inside of the apartment to check on the victim and immediately try to start giving her CPR and helping her. She had been stabbed right above the heart and the chest, and she had several other cuts in her upper torso area.
Casey identifies the victim as his girlfriend, 21-year-old Tina Stewart.
I know she's a fighter. That's one thing I knew. And sometimes, you know, they tell you pray. So I'm telling God, like, you know, make it happen.
Clantina Tina Stewart was born October 17, 1989, and raised in Memphis, Tennessee.
She was a tough little girl growing up, and that toughness carried her onto the basketball court.
She was a extremely great high school athlete, starting in the 10th grade, 11th grade.
She kind of came in late to the scene, like the basketball scene. Even though she was older than me, I still had been playing longer than her. But when she came, she was a force. Like, it was crazy. She came out of nowhere.
My senior year, you know, she was, one of the top guards in Memphis. And if you're one of the top guards in Memphis, you're one of the top guards in the state. And which, got her a scholarship to one of the best programs in Tennessee.
In the summer of 2008, Tina headed to Murfreesboro to begin training at Middle Tennessee State University.
The men's basketball team was in the weight room. We were lifting, working hard, and then I remember the girls' basketball team came in. We were trying to see who the new girls there, who's new on campus, and things like that. So, that's where I first initially saw Tina Stewart.
He's a basketball player for MTSU, just like Tina. They hit it off from the beginning.
We both had a passion for the same things. So, and it's kind of rare where you have a person who can share the same things.
She was a free spirit, She wasn't too much. It was kind of hard to tie down. But he gave her a little balance, because he wasn't going to be all over the place. And she wanted to be wherever he was.
This love that we had in college, it was genuine. I would say that, definitely genuine.
After 2 years of living on campus, Tina moved into an off-campus apartment. She was paired with a roommate, 18-year-old Shanterica Madden.
Shanterica was a good student, very studious. She had straight A's throughout high school. She had a full academic scholarship because she had worked so hard as a student. They probably looked at the background that they were both from Memphis and thought, this is probably going to be a good match.
Shanterica knew of Tina because she was, popular basketball, popular staple in the community as far as sports. But Tina didn't know who she was.
When it came to personality, Tina and Shanterica were opposites.
Shanterica Madden is a very sheltered, quiet, withdrawn, introverted mouse of a person. She is not someone who walks in a room and you just immediately gravitate toward, which is the exact opposite of Tina.
Tina, she had tons of friends, very outgoing person. A lot of people loved her.
After living together for a few months, the roommates discovered more differences.
Tina was really clean.
You could tell that Shanterica didn't have a lot of life experience. Like she didn't know how to, clean up a kitchen and maintain cleanliness. She was very sheltered at home.
Shanterica's housekeeping irritated Tina. But it was KC that bothered Shanterica.
Shanterica and Tina had disagreements about Tina's boyfriend, Casey Anuna, staying over.
That was a shocker because when I was over there, I was never in the areas long periods of time or, I was always trying to, I'm in the room or I'm gone, I'm out of the apartment. I wasn't trying to be in the same space as them because I understand that, this is not where I stay.
Despite the friction, Tina kept her focus on her studies and basketball.
In the spring, the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders were scheduled to play in the Sun Belt Conference women's basketball tournament.
But just 3 days before the tournament begins, KC calls 911 to report that Tina has been stabbed. Paramedics arrive.
They started doing CPR on her immediately, even though they could tell she's injured pretty bad.
As paramedics load Tina onto a stretcher, KC goes back outside to speak with police in the parking lot.
I saw the stretcher come down, I'm just like, man, I'm praying even harder now in my mind.
Police begin to establish who's who.
You got a young lady was laying there in a pool of blood.
Casey Anuna is the young man who made the call. The woman who is running from the police is Shanterica Med.
They had no idea who she was or how she was involved.
At the beginning of an investigation, everybody is going to be a suspect.
Shortly after 7 p.m. on March 2nd, 2011, detectives with the Murfreesboro Police Department are investigating the brutal attack on college basketball star Tina Stewart.
She had a pulse, maybe a faint pulse, and they're going to keep working on her.
Tina's boyfriend, KC, and roommate, Shanterica, are on the scene when investigators get an update on her condition. They learn that shortly after Tina arrived in the ER, she succumbed to her injuries.
She was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Tina was stabbed from the front and the back. So the wound that was right above her heart is what killed her. She bled from that because it nicked some sort of artery.
The lady, the police officer, she's like, she didn't make it. I just broke down.
Both KC and Shanterica are escorted to the station.
They take me downtown. She even taken in for questioning.
You want to separate the two and get separate statements from each person. That way you can tell what's going on, who's telling the truth.
Detectives go inside Tina's bedroom where the attack took place.
The blood was along the wall. There was blood on the floor, on the bed. It was a very messy crime scene. This was a very violent attack.
But investigators are unable to locate what caused Tina's injuries.
You're looking for any kind of weapons. You got no weapon at this time.
They spot something suspicious in the kitchen.
When they search the apartment, they find a knife block that is missing a couple of knives.
Investigators also collect Tina's phone as evidence. Other than that and the missing knives, the scene yields few clues.
This when you gotta slow down and take all the evidence and start talking to people one-on-one.
Back at the station, detectives sit down with KC. He explains what led to his desperate 911 call.
Casey had got done with practice and he and Tina had dinner plans. He sent a few text messages and the response that he got just didn't sound like Tina.
I get a text back like I'm in the shower. I look at it and I'm just like, you know, I've been dating this girl for 3 years. This is not how she texts.
He stated that she was more emotional. She sent emojis, I love you, more lovely-dovey type stuff, to where this was more generic.
You know, I see you later, not the letter C, she's spelling it out. And this person's not texting like that. I was living with my fraternity brother, a great friend of mine, and I told him, man, I want to go over to Tina's place. I don't feel right about it, you know? And I go to her apartment complex, I touched the door handle, and I was like, you know, I knocked.
Shanterica answered the door.
I was like, is Tina here? She's like, no, I haven't seen her. No, she's not here. I haven't seen her. So I was like, all right.
KC tells investigators that he decided to check her room anyway.
So I walk down the hallway. In the very back room is Tina's room. The door's open. And the TV's on, but the lights are off. So I'm just like, I kind of look back, you know, and I don't hear anything. I don't look down. I don't look up. She's not on the bed. I just like, she's not in here. I just like, you know. So I walk back out, and I'm walking towards the door, and I'm like, you sure you haven't seen Tina? You know, she's like, her voice changes, like, no, I haven't seen her.
KC made note of something he hadn't seen before.
Shanterica, he noticed she had bags and stuff packed too, and about to go out the front door.
And something tells me, like, turn around. So I turn around and I will go back to her room. And this time I turn on the lights. That's when I see Tina laying flat. So the first thing I said, we joke a lot. You know, we play. So I was like, get up, stop playing. Then I see the blood. I rush to her, I turn her over, and I see the blood everywhere. And I'm just like, my mind's everywhere. I'm trying to talk to Tina, like, hold on, fight, you know. Little to no response, but she still some life, you know. So I'm talking to her and call 911.
Shanterica heard him calling out.
She kind of had her head in the door and saying, it's not me, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. So she takes off. That's when I just trying to go after Shanterica. I don't want her to get away.
Responding officer came to the scene and saw him running after her.
Then I got downstairs and that's when I was stopped.
You're really just left with a lot of questions. You know, what exactly happened? What was the cause of all this? What went down here in this apartment?
On the night of March 2nd, 2011, police in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, are investigating the fatal stabbing of 21-year-old Tina Stewart.
Her boyfriend, KC, is being questioned, and there's no reason to think that he might have done this. He's cleared pretty early on as a suspect.
KC tells investigators that he can't think of anyone who would want to harm Tina.
Like, I knew everything about this girl, Tina Stewart. You know, she told me everything. So it's like, nah, there was no other troubles going on.
Although Casey does admit that tension between Tina and Shanterica was running high.
It was mostly about the cleanliness of, or the lack of, with Shanterica, leaving things around. You know, Tina was a very, you know, neat person. Then it was like taking things or touching things without permission as far as food, and she smelling the marijuana.
Shanterica started smoking weed in the apartment, regardless of whether Tina was there. And that was a big problem for Tina.
For Tina, since she's an athlete, she gets regular drug tests. And we learned that Shanterica is a casual marijuana user. Tina, you know, doesn't want this around her. She doesn't want to end up failing a drug test from secondhand smoke.
And she want to lose a scholarship, and she also want to be in good standing with her coach, because now, you know, if I'm a star player and I'm busted with marijuana, she might not play me, and there go my hopes and dreams.
She's just like, look, I'm not your mom, not your dad. You're in college. Just don't do it in the house.
Investigators prepare to interview Shanterica. But first, they speak with an officer who says he paid a visit to the apartment just before the stabbing, at Tina's request.
He was a off-duty officer living at the apartment complex. We call him a courtesy officer. Your job is to answer any call at the complex. Loud party call, 3 in the morning, you go answer. So he got a call from the office manager that there was somebody smoking marijuana at the apartment.
The courtesy officer made his way out there. Shanterica's asking, who called on me for this? How did you even find out about this? And Tina's coming out of her room saying, I'm the one who called.
He told Shanterica to toss out the weed, not to do that again. He didn't make a formal complaint. I think that he was just trying to calm the girls down.
Did tensions between the roommates rise even higher after Tina made the call? Investigators ask Shanterica.
I understand that apparently earlier this evening there was some sort of altercation between you and your roommate.
Shanterica says that shortly before 6 p.m., she was hanging out in the apartment with her friend Nene when the courtesy officer arrived.
I guess my roommate had called the front desk, and the front desk sent the police over. And I talked to him, and he was basically like, if he searched my room and he didn't find anything, then it'll be cleared. And if I told him the truth, so he searched, and he was like, well, you told the truth. And he said, but he's still gonna have to talk to the manager.
Already, investigators have caught Shanterica in a lie. They know that the courtesy officer found marijuana because they've already talked to him.
And after he left, I talked to Tina, which is my roommate. I talked to her. Then I knocked on her door and told her that I need to talk to her. And we talked. And it kind of got heated because we both kind of had attitude. And she kind of shoved me, and I kind of shoved her back. And then the next thing I know, we was fighting. She kind of just slammed my head, so she was pounding my head, and I was pounding her face. And just with my hand.
Okay.
And then she pushed me to the ground. When she had my head, she pushed me to the ground, so I was right on the ground. And I gathered her. And she was like, get out of my room, get out of my room. So I left.
According to Shanterica, Nene left the apartment soon after, and Tina was right behind her.
My roommate, she was doing something. I think she was putting on her shoes because I seen her kind of roam around moving, because that's normally what she was doing. And she turned down her TV, and she put on her jacket, and she walked out the door.
Shanterica says she also left.
I walked all around the parking lot, kind of because I was trying to get out the nerves out of my system. And I didn't shut the door, I just kind of shut it. I didn't lock it, I didn't bring my keys with me.
And then she said on her way out, she did notice that there was a guy hanging out through a dress that she'd never seen the conflict before.
She says there's a man with dreadlocks who was in the area, who was carrying a knife.
When she returned to the apartment a little while later, the front door was open.
The door was still, it was like, wasn't closed. I kind of shut it.
The front door?
I shut the door, and it wasn't closed. It was kind of like cracked, so I just thought she came back.
She says that Tina must have come back while she was gone, and this dreadlock man must have attacked her.
He black, he got dreads, and he kind of tall, but everybody taller than me. But he got probably like 5'6". And this is the third time I've seen him over there.
Detectives don't buy it. This whole story seems made up and really unlikely.
Now, you're at a critical point right now, all right? You're at a fork in the road, okay? And I want to help you choose the right fork. Something bad happened tonight.
But Shanterica sticks to her story.
All I know, I did not kill Tina. Tina was perfectly fine when I left.
She is very, mechanical in her movements, the way she talks, the way she responded to detectives. During the whole interview process that night with police, she might as well have been a robot.
Investigators noticed something else about her behavior.
During her interview, the whole time she's kind of using a card and kind of picking the blood off the ends of her fingers.
The fight she described having with Tina wouldn't have left blood on her hands, so where did that blood come from?
Hours after the death of Tina Stewart, Murfreesboro police interview her roommate, Shanterica Madden.
They noticed that she had been absent-mindedly picking dried blood from the tips of her fingers during the interview. They're gonna go hard on her now.
Listen to me, okay? Now, I'm gonna be straight with you, okay? And I've been doing this for a long time, okay? And you've got some marks on your face. I've been sitting here looking. It looks like your cheek might be a little bit swollen. I think what happened was you and Tina got to an argument, got to a physical fight that got a little out of hand. Another thing I find interesting is that you're right-handed, you got blood right here on the crook of your right hand.
She stuck to it for the longest, till she finally started breaking down slowly. And finally she said, well, I'm gonna tell you the truth.
I turned, when we talked about whatever it was, I turned around and was headed into my room, and I think I kind of bumped into her, and she was like, "Don't bump into me," and she shoved me, and I shoved her back.
The fighting escalated, and Shanterica knew she was outmatched.
She says that when she and Tina were fighting, she was scared because Tina was an athlete and much stronger than her.
I kept saying, that hurt, because my head started paining real bad. And she had a knife sitting, I think it was on the bed. So, I don't know what she was doing. I think she was cutting something. But she had a knife sitting on the bed, and I grabbed that knife after, because she still had my head down. She was pounding me on the head, and I grabbed the knife and just kind of went like this. When she was coming towards me, I kind of went like this, and I just hit her and let it up, and she fell.
She does admit that she stabbed Tina, but says, of course, that it was in self-defense.
I didn't mean for this to happen.
And the problem with the whole thing is, why didn't you call the police at that time?
I had my phone in my hand. I was like, I need to call somebody. And I was going to go call the police. I had my phone, but I couldn't find the number that I wanted to call.
Where's the knife at now?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I dropped it or I took it outside when I went outside. I don't remember.
You remember, because we didn't want it to be sitting out there in that field or something, and some kid get a hold of it or something like that.
I don't think so. I can't remember.
Investigators get word that officers back at the crime scene may have the answer.
A neighbor saw Shanterica around the dumpster just after this incident occurred. Police check it out. They do find a knife wrapped in a blanket that's covered with blood and is obviously their murder weapon.
This knife also matches a knife found in the apartment.
Investigators confront Shanterica with the new evidence.
They finally went to the dumpster and found the knife and the blanket, so now I got a piece of the evidence. And now I'm going to tell Miss Madden, I have this.
Shanterica changes her story again.
She does admit that she basically just freaked out afterwards and decided to get rid of the knife in the dumpster.
She didn't call 911, but instead went to dispose of the knife. That puts another dent in her claim of self-defense because it looks like she was trying to hide what she'd done.
Meanwhile, news of Tina's death has brought the MTSU campus to its knees.
The Lady Raiders were well loved. This particular team was very well known because they were very talented, and they were just very popular. This whole situation shocked everyone more than I think that anybody really understood.
Police hold a press conference to officially announce Tina's death. They also ask anyone with any information about the crime to call in.
At 6:20 p.m., Shanterica's friend, Renee Nene Reese, calls police.
Renee Reese tells police that she was there when the security officer came to the apartment and when Shanterica confronted Tina.
Renee Reese, friend to accused killer Shanterica Madden, tells investigators that she was in the apartment when an off-duty police officer was summoned by Shanterica's roommate, Tina.
And then as soon as he left, she said that Miss Madden immediately went to Tina's room, knocked on the door, and confronted her.
She says Shanterica was mad at Tina for calling the off-duty officer on her, and they started arguing, and it got heated quickly.
She said she went back into Miss Madden's room because they was arguing very loudly, and she wouldn't be a part of it, and she could hear banging and arguing.
Renee says she also heard someone saying, "She got a knife," and "Stop, my heart hurts," or "My heart is beating," something like that. At some point, things got quiet. Then Shanterica knocked on the bedroom door and Renee let her in. Shanterica said, "We have to go." Renee saw blood on Shanterica's arm, so she asked Shanterica what happened to Tina, and Shanterica said she left. Renee says she glanced towards Tina's room.
She did say that she could see Tina's leg hanging through the doorway. So she did see it, that she was down and injured, so she knew something was wrong.
Renee says she grabbed her purse and headed for the door.
In the living room, she said she saw Shanterica holding a blanket, stuffing it in a big, clear plastic bag. As she was leaving the apartment, she saw Shanterica drop the bag and a piece of knife fell on the floor. Renee says Shanterica tried to hand her the bag.
She asked her actually to throw it away for her. She said, no, I'm not going to do that.
Renee left. She tells police that she placed the first call to 911.
Okay. All right. What's your name?
I don't want to say my name. I don't feel comfortable saying my name.
Shanterica tried to get her friend to help her cover up the crime. She didn't call 911. This is not looking like self-defense.
They charged her with first-degree premeditated murder.
News of Shanterica's arrest is another blow to the stunned community.
When she was officially charged, I wouldn't say it was a sign of relief. I just wanted justice to be served, you know.
Tina was a superstar in Memphis. You know, everyone knew who she was.
Investigators focus on building their case.
They know from the start that she's going to show up to court claiming self-defense, so they need to be able to counter that.
Investigators discover a series of postings on Tina's social media from the day of her death.
Before the incident, Tina was on Twitter blasting Shanterica on social media, saying that she didn't care anymore, that she was over it. She was sick of the situation.
At 5:37 p.m., Tina tweeted, "I just called the police on my roommate. I feel like a snitch, but I don't like this."
You can see where she didn't really want to tell on her. But then again, she didn't want to lose her scholarship, so she's put in a hard place. So what do? You do what you need to do.
At 5:58 p.m., Tina tweeted, "Police is here." Then, a minute later, "This gonna be too hot." And finally, her last tweet at 6:01 p.m., "I hope he finds some, please, please."
Tina saw how much she had on the line. Shanterica had everything to lose as well if her parents found out that she was doing weed. So they both had a lot to lose. It was a fire waiting to be started, honestly. Like, it just needed the right match.
Investigators speak with Tina's friend, Scooter Macklin. She tells them she was on the phone with Tina when Shanterica came in to confront her.
She asked Tina why she didn't let her know what was going on, but Tina's response was, "I had already spoken to you earlier this week about this situation being a situation and that it couldn't be one. This is what happened, this is the result." And she left the room. Like, me and Tina started back talking on the phone. She left the room for like 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and then she came back.
Miss Stewart was on the phone with Miss Backlund up to like 6:04 and the phone disconnected.
And I'm calling back, but I didn't get a response. But by then, I got a text message that said, "Finna get in the shower, I'll call you right back."
By the time she gets that text, police think that Tina is bleeding out and Shanterica is trying to buy time by sending texts from her phone.
She did not try to help Tina. Instead, she tried to hide the truth about the situation.
On March 11th, 2011, 9 days after Tina Stewart was found dead, Shanterica is released on a $100,000 bond.
Shanterica didn't have any history of violence beforehand. She had never been arrested. She didn't have a juvie record.
I was the most disappointed about the fact that she was able to post bond. She posted bond and went to Memphis and went to the mall. My phone was going crazy again. Most people couldn't believe that she had the audacity to just be walking around in the world like that.
On May 9th, 2012, Shanterica Madden goes on trial for first-degree murder.
The courtroom stayed packed more than I'd ever seen it. Just overwhelming the number of people that came out to support Tina and her family. And Shanterica's family was there during the whole trial. Her mom and dad were right there in the front row behind the defense table the whole time.
Just as prosecutors anticipated, Shanterica pleads not guilty, claiming she acted in self-defense. She takes the stand to tell her version of events.
Tina confronted Shanterica, and that Shanterica was acting in self-defense, and that she just happened to see the knife that was in Tina's room on the bed and then grabbed the knife. The knife was already in Tina's room because Tina had been eating a snack or something, and there was a knife on the bed, but it just happened to be there. And so she used that in self-defense in the heat of the moment.
Prosecutors argue that the forensic evidence tells a different story.
The blood spatter showed that Tina had been stabbed from behind initially, and then at some point had turned around and tried to defend herself. That aligns with what the coroner found during the autopsy.
You can see on her hands that she was cut, and she was trying to defend herself from being attacked.
Tina was stabbed in her back, upper torso area at one point, so that doesn't lend itself to a self-defense argument.
They also argue that the knife wasn't on Tina's bed.
Nobody had ever seen Tina leave dirty dishes or food just sitting out on the bed. That was not her personality whatsoever. She was very clean, conscientious about being clean, and she usually didn't eat in her bedroom.
As soon as she went to grab the knife, she was formulating the plan, was their argument. That she had to make a willful decision to pick up the knife and to use it.
Shanterica did not immediately call 911. She did not try to help Tina. Instead, she immediately started trying to hide evidence, knowing full well that her roommate was bleeding to death on the other side of the wall.
On May 14th, the jury reaches a verdict.
The jury found her guilty of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. They concluded that, yes, she was guilty, but they couldn't definitively say she planned this murder.
Later at sentencing, Shanterica received 29 years in prison, 25 for the second-degree murder charge, and 4 years added onto that for the tampering with evidence charge.
29 years versus a person that's lost their life, it's not equal. It's not equal. You shouldn't be able to, she can come out and still be able to at least do something, experience something, whereas Tina can't.
I've been watching the March Madness in the Final Four. I could see my best friend being one of those coaches. You know, I could see my best friend standing out there clapping and supporting some girls and giving them an opportunity to shine and show who they are. And that's ultimately what I feel like was taken from the world.
It was sad to see a beautiful young, girl like that who had such a bright future, who overcame so much, who was the first person to go to college from her family, to die in college. That's not how it's supposed to go. That's not how the story is supposed to end. You know what I'm saying? That's just not how it's supposed to end.
The good book tells us love is patient. Love is kind, does not envy, does not boast. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And that may be true. But for some folks, there's a dark side to love. One that's jealous. One that's cruel. One that will do anything to make sure it gets what it wants. It's a sunny spring Monday in Durkeeville, a neighborhood on the northwest side of Jacksonville, Florida.
Durkeeville is a very historic area for the African American community.
You've got a lot of good people, a lot of hardworking people that are trying to make the most for themselves and for their families.
But just after 2 p.m., a resident of a Durkeeville apartment building notices something amiss.
There's a smell of smoke. There's evidence of a fire. Something is definitely wrong.
The resident finds smoke billowing from the cracks of his neighbor's door.
The neighbor was a deacon in his church, and that's how he was known to many in the community.
He pounds on the door, but there's no answer.
The alarms are sounding in his head, so he calls the fire department.
Within minutes, both the Jacksonville Fire Department and police arrive.
An officer makes sure the neighbor is safe and out of the way so that firefighters can do their job.
Firefighters rush to the door.
They don't know if someone is trapped inside, so they're trying to get in as fast as possible.
They force the door open and make their way inside the home.
They follow this smoke, go through the hallway, they make the turn, they go into the back bedroom.
Firefighters see a large pile of smoldering, charred clothes on the bed.
Under a pile of burnt and ashy clothes, they see a man's body.
The victim was kind of on his knees, bent over the bed.
It was clear the victim was deceased.
He was mutilated, stabbed in the head. Just the sheer brutality of how the killing occurred. There was something personal here.
It appears the killer or killers not only wanted the deacon dead, but they went to great lengths to cover their tracks. But who would do such a thing to a man of the cloth? And why? "25-year-old Keisha Love always stood out in a crowd.
She has very high cheekbones and piercing eyes. Guys be like,
Keisha had a passion for fashion and beauty.
she always kept her hair done, always wanted her nails done, liked to wear nice clothes.
She loved to style, she loved cosmetology.
Keisha was hoping to make a career of it.
She can do hair really good. She intended to have her own business.
She was trying to push for a better future for herself, so she was taking classes at a beauty school.
But after a while, the financial stress of making ends meet while taking classes and trying to build a career took its toll on Keisha and steered her onto a dark path.
She liked to smoke weed, she liked to drink, she liked to go out and party. She definitely had an attraction towards people who were successful, but people who were in the streets.
Eventually, though, Keisha realized that her partying habits were getting out of hand.
She wanted to better her life.
She was trying to get on a better path.
Keisha decided to leave the late nights out behind and started attending church regularly.
Keisha is using her religious beliefs to say, God, I know I can pray to you. I know I can talk to you.
The church gave Keisha a sense of support and quickly shifted her focus. She was determined to go back to school and start a career.
She needed to go back to just getting herself together, and she had started on that path.
Things were finally looking up for Keisha. With her partying ways behind her, she found herself more open than ever to love. And that's when she met 33-year-old charmer Darius Jones. Keisha admired his confidence and take-charge attitude.
Darius Jones is a quote-unquote bad boy. He is not afraid of taking risks, taking chances.
He was a hustler. He was about his business.
Women are very attracted to that type of authority and that type of power.
He offered a sense of protection. There's no need to worry, he's got me. She wanted that, she needed that.
Keisha became completely enthralled with Darius.
Keisha wanted to be with Darius. There was this obvious connection here, and she was going to do what it took to keep him as her man.
She did have hopes on getting married one day.
Darius is selling Keisha a dream. He seems to promise this life that she's wanting, he can be a part of that. He can make it even better.
After only a few months of dating, the couple got a big surprise. Keisha was pregnant. She could see her future with Darius, one big happy family.
Keisha and Darius having a child makes them feel connected to one another.
He says, you know, I want the baby, and I want you. I want us. And she goes with that.
They're still going about life the same way. This is a God-sent thing for us to be together. We must be together.
But what Keisha didn't yet know was that this relationship would soon lead her to commit sins she never imagined possible. April 15th, 2014, 2:30 p.m. Detectives from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office have arrived at the scene of an apartment fire, where the charred body of local deacon Jerome Stevens has been discovered.
Immediately, they notice it was a violent scene.
It's about as sickening a crime as you can imagine.
Police couldn't imagine who would want to kill a pillar of the community in such a brutal fashion, and why. As the investigation unfolds, they'll soon uncover a chilling plot centered around a young woman who would go to hell and back for her man.
This is a man that is dangerous, a detriment to society. She's literally playing with fire by...
25-year-old Keisha Love thought she'd finally found her soulmate in 33-year-old Darius Jones.
Keisha has found what she believes to be her dream in a man.
Keisha's attracted to him because he's a bad boy. He's got an intimidation factor.
She clearly worshipped the ground he walked on.
However, little did Keisha know, her devotion to her man would cause her to do the unthinkable.
When she cared about somebody, she'd be head over heels, ride or die for that person.
April 15th, 2014. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is investigating the murder of local church deacon Jerome Stevens, who was found brutally murdered inside his apartment.
You have a violent crime scene, and he's got a bullet hole in his head. He also has multiple stab wounds to the head.
There was obvious evidence that there was a struggle. This one looked like it was personal.
The victim had been found under a pile of clothes that was set on fire.
It's obvious that this fire is just to cover up the violent attack that this man endured.
While processing the scene, detectives find a gas can in the corner of the room.
There was evidence of a gas can being brought to the scene as some type of accelerant. And then when I happened to look up, I noticed that the smoke detector had been physically removed from that wall.
Somebody took that smoke detector before they lit the fire.
Detectives also noticed that some of the victim's personal items appear to be missing from the apartment.
Deacon Stevens' wallet is gone. That raises the suspicion of a robbery here. That could be a potential motive.
In the living room, detectives discover that the back door is ajar.
The back door to the apartment appeared to have been forced open. There was obvious damage.
What's more, an officer informs detectives that Mr. Stevens' vehicle is missing as well.
This man's keys are missing. His SUV is gone. So that gives them something to look for.
It appears the deacon was targeted. But by whom? After putting out an APB for the missing vehicle, detectives speak to neighbors for more insight.
No one had any reason to believe that Mr. Stevens was doing anything that would have led to someone wanting to kill him.
Later that day, detectives deliver the tragic news to Deacon Stevens' family.
It was complete disbelief. I would have never thought anybody would ever want to hurt him.
Mr. Stevens' family says the deacon was always one to lend a helping hand.
Jerome was always a big brother, big-hearted, giving, loving, all-around good guy. He didn't know a stranger. Everybody he met was a friend. He was just always trying to do something to help you.
Detectives ask if they know anyone he had been helping recently.
The weekend that he was killed, he mentioned the girl that he was helping.
The brother of Deacon Stevens says, I clearly remember this name. It's Keisha Love.
She's a single mother, and this is another person that Mr. Stevens is helping out.
The family states that Mr. Stevens met Keisha at church. They say Keisha told the deacon that she and her boyfriend, Darius Jones, had fallen on hard times.
They were struggling to make ends meet.
They were finding themselves living on the street or wherever a friend would take them in.
Mr. Stevens' family tells detectives that the deacon had taken in Keisha and her child until she could get back on her feet, while Keisha's boyfriend stayed with another friend.
Deacon Stevens wanted to help this young, single mother. He took her and her daughter off the streets, let them live in his apartment with him, and he didn't ask for any money.
However, what detectives would soon find out is that no good deed goes unpunished, and the deacon's need to help people would ultimately be his downfall.
It was personal. Whoever did this had knowledge, friendship, relationships of some kind with Mr. Stevens.
This is a man of the cloth, a preacher man, who sees somebody that he could potentially help. That could have been what did him in.
The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is investigating the grisly murder of Jerome Stevens, a popular church deacon.
They're still trying to figure out who would kill this man. A man of God, a man who helped his community.
Family members remember a woman the deacon was helping recently, named Keisha Love. She had been staying with the deacon while she and her boyfriend were trying to get back on their feet.
While Keisha is staying with Mr. Stevens, Darius was staying with another friend.
Detectives are eager to speak to Keisha, but there's just one problem. No one seems to know how to find her.
She really didn't have any local connections that we could find, so we were kind of flying blind on her, if you will.
Detectives switch gears and look into Mr. Stevens' stolen property, hoping those items might yield a lead to Keisha's whereabouts.
We received positive use of the victim's credit card at a local store, probably about a mile from his house.
When someone is found dead and their credit card is still being used, that's a pretty good tip-off to police that the killer is out there and spending their money.
At the convenience store, detectives scour the surveillance footage with the manager. The footage catches a man and woman attempting to purchase items on Mr. Stevens' card.
The card is declined, so they end up paying cash.
But it's the items the couple purchases that really gets the detectives' attention.
On that night, they bought infant formula, baby wipes, and 2 drinks.
Detectives believe the woman in the surveillance footage is Keisha Love, the single mother the deacon was helping out prior to his death, and that the man in the video is Keisha's boyfriend, Darius Jones.
I asked the credit card company, the bank, to leave the victim's credit card open to see if anybody else attempted use.
As detectives finish up with the convenience store, they get word that Mr. Stevens' stolen SUV has been found at an abandoned home.
In the car, among other things, we located the smoke detector that we believed had since been removed from the victim's apartment.
They also find 2 empty drink bottles in the seat console.
One of the things that was initially attempted to be purchased with Mr. Stevens' card were 2 drinks, but they ended up using cash.
Detectives continue to monitor Mr. Stevens' bank card and get another hit.
The card was used at a very small neighborhood convenience store, and so we made it a point to go over there.
At the store, they show the clerk a surveillance photo from the first convenience store.
We showed it to him and he goes, yeah, she lives right there, and she lives in that 2-story house. So that became our next focus.
Detectives head across the street to the home. They knock on the door, hoping they have finally tracked down Mr. Stevens' killers. But the woman who answers the door is not who they were expecting.
She did not match the woman in the surveillance video that we had acquired from the store.
The woman says her name is Carletta Owens and tells detectives she is the homeowner. Detectives show Carletta the surveillance photo. She quickly confirms the identities of Keisha Love and Darius Jones.
Carletta provided great information.
Carletta tells detectives that she and Darius had been friends for years, and she'd let Darius stay at her home for the last few weeks. She says his girlfriend and their baby would occasionally stay over as well.
Carletta's there to help Darius. She's there to help the child.
Detectives ask Carletta if she had ever seen Darius with a gun.
She said he always carried a gun. And so we're obviously heading in the right direction.
Detectives ask if she can account for the couple's whereabouts on the night of April 14th. Carletta explains that she remembers the night vividly. She was babysitting the couple's daughter when Darius and Keisha came in around midnight.
She also was able to tell us that they had brought over baby wipes and things that we believed were just purchased at the store. She said that Darius's behavior had changed and that his clothing had blood on him.
Carletta says she also noticed Keisha was slightly hurt.
She observed Keisha with an arm injury.
Detectives theorize Keisha may have injured her arm on Mr. Stevens' back door.
There was obvious damage to the rear door. Somebody forced the door open.
Carletta says Darius and Keisha dumped off the supplies for the baby and left in a hurry. After they were gone, she found a wallet in a bag Keisha had left behind.
Basically, she had the contents of the wallet belonging to the victim inside the house. That was the first time that we could definitively say that Keisha Love and Darius Jones were somehow involved in the victim's death.
With this break in the case, detectives immediately put out an APB for Keisha Love and Darius Jones.
We made it a mission to find Keisha Love and Darius Jones, and we now had warrants for both of the individuals.
But investigators would soon learn that at the heart of this vicious crime, there was a love that truly knew no bounds.
He had her wrapped around his finger, and she was willing to do anything for him.
The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is on the hunt for Keisha Love and Darius Jones. Based on witness statements, detectives believe the couple is connected to the brutal murder of local church deacon Jerome Stevens.
They run the history on Darius. They look and they see he's got a long rap sheet. He's known to carry a gun. It's a .22 revolver.
Keisha and Darius became suspect 1A and 1B in their minds.
Investigators put out an APB on the couple, and their first hit is on the location of Darius Jones.
Through some good police work, we learned that Darius was due to give plasma at a location at the beach.
Police stake out the plasma clinic and prepare to apprehend Darius Jones.
As Darius showed up for his plasma appointment, we had a tactical plan and were able to take him into custody, fortunately without incident.
Police were able to search Darius at the time and found a gun on his person that they were able to confiscate and take into evidence.
Officers transport Darius to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And now detectives focus on tracking down Keisha Love.
We were able to get information that Keisha was on a city bus.
Once she's off the bus, detectives waste no time arresting Keisha.
Obviously, her arm was still injured and in a sling, so it made it a little bit easier to spot her.
Like her boyfriend, Keisha is also taken into custody without incident.
Carletta had been keeping their baby the whole time all of this was going on, but after their arrest, the baby went into the care of Keisha's mother.
Back at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, detectives begin interrogations. First up is Darius Jones. Detectives ask Darius if he knows Mr. Stevens.
I've been to this house a few times, actually.
Did you have any issue or beef with him?
No.
Did Keisha have any issue or beef with him?
No.
With Darius not saying much, detectives push harder, hoping he'll crack.
I'm telling you, he's dead. And I need to know why. Because I know how, I know who, I know where, I know when. The only thing I need you to tell me is why.
I didn't do anything to him.
Less than 30 minutes after you killed him, you're using his card. Darius, look at me. I'm not bullshitting you.
I understand.
Listen. Well, yes, you are.
No matter what angle detectives try, Darius denies having any involvement with Mr. Stevens' death.
I didn't do anything to him.
After striking out with Darius, detectives take a shot at Keisha Love. But she is hardly what detectives were expecting.
She was very soft-spoken. She wouldn't strike anybody as the person that could have been responsible for killing another person.
They start asking Keisha about some other crimes she might be involved with.
Do you recall recently pawning a television? Okay. Do you remember where that television came from? Your boyfriend is who?
And then boom, they hit her with a bombshell. They show a surveillance picture of her trying to buy those baby supplies with the dead deacon's card at the store.
I think she realized pretty quick that she was caught.
Soon, detectives will learn the truth, that jealousy's ugly head can turn violent on a dime.
I just see when you went to the bedroom door.
Mother Keisha Love for the murder of church deacon Jerome Stevens.
Detectives believe that Keisha and her boyfriend, Darius Jones, were both involved in this heinous crime.
After showing Keisha evidence of her using the deacon's card, she begins to come clean. She admits that it all started when she and Darius began having money troubles after the birth of their daughter.
She wanted to get married and settle down with Darius, but they were having trouble making ends meet.
Keisha says she had met the deacon at church, and when she and Darius fell into money troubles, he volunteered to help her out.
Mr. Stevens took in her and her baby until they were able to get back on their feet.
Keisha tells detectives Darius insisted on moving into the deacon's home as well. He didn't want her living alone with another man.
At one point, Keisha had asked if Darius could move in, and Mr. Stevens said no.
Mr. Stevens was only going to open the door for Keisha Love. He wasn't interested in having Darius Jones at his house.
Mr. Stevens probably is feeling like he's not going to do that. He's not going to bring a grown man in his home who's dating this young woman.
Darius, it seems to let his ego get to him. Those feelings of, I have the authority, this is my woman.
According to Keisha, Darius was put off that the deacon had said no.
Darius now had a reason to be angry at Stevens.
He's tired of them staying in two different places. He now wants them to come together to be one.
Keisha says that's when Darius came up with a plan to rob the deacon.
She definitely was the type, like, when she cared about somebody, she would do whatever they asked her to do.
Keisha says she didn't want to go along with it because the deacon had been so kind to her and her child. But Darius convinced her it was the only way.
They thought that this was a way to get money, to move away together and start a family.
Keisha wanted to be with Darius. She was going to do what it took to make him happy.
According to Keisha, on the night of April 14th, she and Darius left their baby at Carletta's house. The couple walked the 5 blocks to Mr. Stevens' home with the intent to rob him.
Keisha is loyal to Darius. She's going to do it regardless because she has his back.
Keisha says on the way there, an argument brewed between the couple.
Keisha and Darius are in a heated discussion about their future. Keisha seems to be ready to have a future. Darius also seems to be ready to have a future, but not on the basis of marriage.
I believe Keisha feels broken. Keisha feels that the man that she thought that she was going to build a family with was no longer a viable outlet for building a family.
Keisha says by the time they arrived, the argument had escalated.
Darius is jealous of the deacon, somebody that took Keisha in, that is a role model, somebody that's trying to help her out.
Now, Darius is ready to take things into his own hands.
Just before midnight, the couple knocked on the door of Jerome Stevens.
Deacon Stevens answers, and that's when Darius says, "Hey, can we talk?" They go inside.
In his bedroom? With Jerome and Darius? Where are you at this point?
Supposedly Keisha is not in the same room with them, and she doesn't really hear what they're talking about.
Keisha tells investigators that's when the night began to spiral out of her control.
We started to fight. Okay, you hear him tussling?
Keisha says she went to the bedroom to see what was going on.
What'd you see when you went to the bedroom door?
Darius beating on my neck with a gun.
What else does he do?
The gun goes off.
Points it at him and it goes off.
Yes.
Keisha claims she was frozen with shock.
Keisha seemed to be numb as she witnessed this, not understanding what had actually transpired.
Mr. Stevens was gravely injured, but still alive. According to Keisha, Darius went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and returned to stab Mr. Stevens repeatedly.
Keisha is claiming that she is a non-participant of any of this.
That's when Keisha says she yelled at Darius to stop and ran for the door.
Keisha tries to run away, and fearing for her life, Darius goes after her to let her know, all right, and the question was, are you with me or against me? Are you going to stick here with me? Darius wants Keisha to be true to him, no matter what.
Keisha says she ultimately agreed to stand by Darius.
Is it possible she had no idea he was going to do this and was just scared he would hurt her if she ran?
Keisha says that from that point on, she went along with anything Darius wanted.
She seems willing to do anything for him, and she almost put aside her own judgment and common sense and became an extension of him.
She's still believing that Darius is going to be the way. Keisha still believes that she and Darius are going to build this family.
Keisha tells detectives Darius gathered up Mr. Stevens' wallet and keys, and the two fled the apartment in his car.
They had taken the life of this man who had provided shelter for her, who had opened his home with an air of trust.
The couple stopped at the convenience store and Carletta's house before returning to the apartment with a can of gasoline to destroy evidence.
They're able to get in through the back door of this apartment. They don't want neighbors to see anything out of the ordinary.
Keisha explains that's when she and Darius piled the clothes onto Mr. Stevens.
So did he actually light the fire?
Keisha says she hurt her arm on the back door as they were leaving.
She was very much there when it happened and had at least some role in this brutal murder and the subsequent fire.
Keisha's confession clearly implicates Darius as the mastermind behind the murder. But soon, police will uncover evidence that suggests Keisha's role in the Deacon's murder is bigger than what she's letting on.
It seemed like they were doing everything together. They were as close as they could be.
The forensic evidence came back suggesting that the injuries suffered by Mr. Stevens were committed by not just one person, but two.
25-year-old Keisha Love and her boyfriend, 33-year-old Darius Jones, are in custody for the murder of local church deacon Jerome Stevens.
Mr. Stevens was a kind-hearted man. He had allowed Keisha and her baby to stay with him until she could afford to move out on her own.
In interrogation, Keisha admits to being present the night of Mr. Stevens' murder, but claims she was an unwitting witness to Darius's fury.
Maybe he's just jealous, he's angry, and he kills him in a fit of rage.
Keisha is loyal to Darius no matter what, and you see that in her actions of doing nothing or even stopping what's going on.
Darius's influence over Keisha seemed extraordinary.
Keisha, in her mind, she just didn't want to be a single mother. No, she didn't want to do it by herself.
He seemed to have a hold on Keisha, and no matter what he did, she kept loving him and wanting to be with him.
But something wasn't sitting right with detectives.
They had a theory that Keisha was more involved than she was admitting.
Detectives look over the forensic evidence to compare the findings with her statement. The autopsy results underscore the brutality of the murder.
There was obvious close gunshot wound to the head, and then even more troubling was there were multiple stab wounds to the victim's skull. Somebody repeatedly tried to inflict pretty gross and unnecessary wounds to a man's head.
The most troubling findings, however, are that the wounds appear to have been produced by two assailants, not one.
We later learned via the autopsy some of the wounds that were to him would have been caused by most likely a woman or perhaps someone who was very frail because they weren't able to drive home the injury.
This report contradicts Keisha's statement. She had said she was present, but not an active participant in the murder.
Keisha claims she did nothing in the house, and she just watched Darius first pistol whip him, then shoot him, then stab him, and then set the place on fire.
To me, it was pretty clear that she was a much more of a participant than she would ever lead herself to believe.
Detectives surmised that when presented with the choice to participate in the violence, Keisha took a leap of faith.
Keisha was in a place where she's trying to decide, like, do I stay with this person that I believe was going to bring me love? She made a choice in that moment that I'm going to tell him I'm with him.
Keisha was so deep with Darius. This was another sign of the hold Darius had over her, where even when she seemed horrified by him, she was still with him, loved him, and supported him. That is probably one of the most jarring things about this case, was the way he seemed to both terrorize her and thrill her all at once.
Detectives continue to strengthen their case against the two.
They found DNA on the smoke detector and on the drinks in the victim's car, which were traced back to Keisha and Darius.
The evidence is clear that these two collaborated. They acted together.
While police are not able to locate the murder weapon, they feel there is enough evidence to hold up in court. And on May 22, 2014, Keisha and Darius are officially charged with Jerome Stevens' murder.
Keisha was blinded by her love for Darius and built her decision-making on being loyal to something that she really believed was loyal to her.
But the case would never go to trial in the end. Keisha and Darius both plead guilty to second-degree murder, armed robbery, and first-degree felony arson. Darius is sentenced to 25 years behind bars. Keisha is sentenced to 20 years.
It felt like it wasn't enough. They still can talk to their family. You know, their family can still visit them. So you still feel like it wasn't enough. They say justice will be served. Justice is never served in a situation like this. Him being gone was a lot to process, but he would say continue on, continue loving, continue giving. Don't let this one bad event change you. That would be Jerome.
Mr. Stevens was a father. His life was lost. Keisha and Darius were parents. Their lives are lost.
Ultimately, with both parents in prison, Keisha and Darius's baby was adopted by a loving family.
It seems Darius sucked Keisha into his world, and she dove in head first, for better or worse, out of love.
I believe that her love for Darius blurred the lines of right and wrong. Because with love, you think that there is no wrong. There can't be any wrong in love. But when it comes to inflicting harm on another person, yeah, there is wrong.
The bonds of love can be heavenly, even divine. But jealousy and selfishness can be a powerful force. And that love light that was shining so bright can cast a dark shadow. And
he was a rising star in San Antonio's hip-hop scene.
He was following in the footsteps of his cousin Beyonce.
He wanted to make a name for himself.
And with his ride or die by his side, it seemed like the sky was the limit.
She was there with him every step of the way.
Their love needed them to be together.
Until his music career started taking center stage.
He needs a new woman in the San Antonio music scene.
Their creative relationship blossomed into something more personal.
So when he's found dead, who is to blame?
This was not an accident that took his life.
The evidence points to a chilling crime committed by a killer with a grudge.
There's a power and control dynamic that's at play.
He's not responding, and I don't know what's going on.
Don't believe anything she's saying.
She was lying about the altercation.
Her last boyfriend had ended up dead.
She should have come with a warning label.
January 26, 2021, San Antonio, Texas, a once quiet mission town, has grown into the Lone Star State's second largest city.
San Antonio has somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 million residents. It is one of the fastest growing cities in the country.
San Antonio, for being a large city, really has a small town feel. It's very traditional, very old, and that makes it different than the other large cities in Texas.
But around 12 p.m., the city's calm is shaken when a 911 call reaches the San Antonio Police Department.
The woman said her name was Nina Edwards and she lived out of state in Louisiana.
I'd like to report a missing person.
The caller tells police that she's concerned about her stepson, who is a 34-year-old up-and-coming rapper by the name of Martel DeRoan.
Martel lived in an apartment on the north side of San Antonio.
She tells police that they've tried to reach Martel for the last few days, and they are very concerned. They have not been able to reach him.
The last time we spoke to him was Friday.
She said nobody's heard from him, nobody's able to get a hold of him. Here's his address. Will you please go do a welfare check to make sure he's okay?
We're really worried about him.
When police arrive at Martel's apartment, there's immediate cause for concern.
There was a hole in the door near the peephole. Their concern at that point was that it was a bullet hole. So they contacted the management and asked if maintenance could assist them with gaining entry into the apartment.
Sir! Sir!
Inside the apartment, the officers make a tragic discovery.
As soon as they opened the door, they just saw a victim laying on the floor.
Martel was lying in a pool of blood.
Despite his reserved personality, 34-year-old Martel DeRoan had a powerful presence that caught people's attention the moment they met him.
Martel was always separated from his peers by his quiet thoughtfulness that you noticed about him.
There was a quiet strength that always seemed to set him aside.
He was young, talented, intelligent, handsome, just a very, very impressive young man.
One of the most important people in Martel's life was his high school sweetheart, Gwen Anderson.
She was from his hometown of New Iberia, Louisiana.
They really connected with each other from a young age and got an apartment in San Antonio.
Their love needed them to be together.
So when Martel decided to join the military in 2004, Gwen didn't shy away.
He wanted to start a career and see the world, and that desire led him to join the military.
He enlists in the Air Force.
He was attached to an esteemed intelligence unit.
Martel was very intelligent. He had to have been to be selected to be into that career field.
However, after 6 years of service in the military, Martel decided it was time for a change.
After reaching the rank of sergeant, Martel left the Air Force and refocused his passions towards his love of music.
Martel always dabbled in music, but that was his hobby. That was his sideline.
At 34 years old, it soon became his main focus in life.
Martel was very, very talented, and he comes from a musical family.
Martel and Beyonce are cousins. They share the same maternal grandmother that she named her clothing line after, House of Darion.
Martel began to make a name for himself in his own right in the music world.
And soon, he started to gain a following of his own.
In 2016, under the name Cardone, Martel released his first album.
Over the next few years, he releases 2 other singles under the name of Cardone.
In 2019, Martell was signed by the Sony-affiliated music label, The Orchard. His hip-hop career began to take off.
But while Martell's music career was taking off, his relationship with Gwen was falling apart.
Once the decision was made for him to leave the military and now make his hobby his profession, that caused some problems.
I'm not okay with all these damn groupies trying to get with you.
She was ready to settle down and start a family, and Martell was on a completely different page. He was just getting started in his music career.
I need you to support me.
The couple's differences proved irreconcilable. And after 13 years together, they made the difficult decision to part ways.
They remained very close friends and stayed in touch with each other over the years, but they ceased being a couple.
And so he poured himself into his music, finding solace in creativity.
Through his creative outlets, Martell eventually connected with someone new.
Before long, he meets a new woman in the San Antonio music scene by the name of Sasha Scar.
Martell and Sasha hit it off very quickly.
Like Martell, Sasha was an up-and-coming young talent in the world of hip-hop.
All right, let's do it one more time. I'm gonna bring the bass up a little bit.
They met filming a video for one of Martell's songs, and he recognized that Sasha had some talent.
In 2019, Martell helped produce Sasha's first new single.
Well, that's perfect.
Their creative relationship blossomed into something more personal, and they began dating.
Thank you, baby.
Together, they seemed like an unstoppable musical force.
In San Antonio, Martell was already a hot commodity. And then once he started this personal relationship with Sasha, they became like the it couple in the hip-hop scene.
They were young and beautiful. Their careers were taking off.
It seemed like nothing could stop them.
But now, Martell's soaring career has come crashing down when San Antonio police officers find him unresponsive on the floor of his apartment.
When the officers were able to gain entry into the apartment, the first thing they see is Martell DeRuin.
He was lying in a pool of blood.
Police attempt to provide first aid, but realize they're too late.
Martell's body is cold to the touch.
It was clear that he had been dead for some time.
It's also clear how Martell died.
This was not an accident that took his life.
It was pretty obvious that the victim had a gunshot wound to the head.
When homicide detectives arrive at Martell's apartment, they begin trying to piece together what happened.
The apartment's in disarray. Some furniture is overturned. I noticed things broken on the floor. There's dishes broken, glass broken.
There are signs of a struggle.
A struggle which carried over into Martell's bedroom.
Going back into the bedroom, I noticed that the bed is actually broken, framed from the headboard. It looked to me like there had been a pretty serious physical fight in the apartment. Something bad happened in there.
Investigators also spot an important clue inside the bedroom closet.
In the closet, they find an open container which has a 9mm magazine in it.
The gun was gone. We couldn't find it anywhere in the apartment. That was a concern.
And they wonder if this is the weapon that killed Martell.
But if Martell's killer was inside his apartment, why was he shot from outside his front door?
The only thing we found was a single gunshot through the door.
It was just odd.
By January of 2021, former Air Force intelligence specialist Martell DeRuin was making a name for himself on San Antonio's hip-hop circuit.
He was following in the footsteps of his cousin Beyonce.
Martell was also forging a relationship with another talented musician named Sasha Scar.
They were both young, they were both attractive, they were both talented.
But now, 4 days after Martel was last seen, police have found the young rapper dead on the floor of his apartment.
The victim had a gunshot wound to the head.
They made a determination pretty quickly, like, this looks like a homicide.
Detectives find clear signs of a struggle inside the apartment. So why does it appear Martel's killer shot him from outside the front door?
It appeared that he was shot while looking through the eye hole of the door of his own apartment. It was just odd that there was this violent interaction inside the apartment, and yet he was killed from the outside of the apartment.
Investigators quickly rule out robbery as a motive.
They find nothing missing in his apartment other than the handgun.
Martel's expensive music production equipment and cell phone are still in place.
There was no sign of forced entry. We knew that.
We knew that Mr. DeRuin was in the getting started in the entertainment industry, an aspiring rapper, musician. We thought about, could this be related to that?
Detectives hope that Martel's cell phone may lead them to a suspect.
The detectives turn over Martel's passcode locked cell phone to forensic analysts for processing.
And in the meantime, they start making contact with his neighbors.
When we started the canvass, the first place we knocked was the neighbor's door right across from the victim's apartment.
The neighbor tells police that he heard commotion between 10:30 and 11 Friday night.
The neighbor said Friday night they put in an order for fast food to have it delivered. And about the time the food should be delivered, they heard some pretty heavy knocking, beating on an apartment door.
Slamming on the door hardcore to the point where I thought it was on my door.
Thinking that was their food delivery, they got up and opened the door.
The neighbor says a young woman was standing outside.
She was like crying in front of the door, and I was like, "Hey, do you need something?"
The young lady basically said, "No, kind of in a don't worry about what I'm doing, mind your own business type thing."
When you saw her out there, was she carrying anything, holding anything?
No, not at all.
He didn't see her with any type of gun.
So he went back inside and tried to mind his own business.
And then maybe 20 minutes later, I heard the banging again, and just heard some arguing at the door, and then I'm not too sure because I stopped paying attention at that point. I just turned up the volume and tried to zone it out.
He didn't want to get involved.
Detectives aren't exactly sure how yet, but they believe this mystery woman had something to do with Martel's death.
We've now established that this critical incident happened on Friday night, which would explain why the family did not hear from the victim throughout the weekend.
Down the hall from Martel's apartment, detectives discover another potential lead.
They notice an apartment that has a video doorbell on the outside.
The resident of that apartment unit didn't seem to be home.
The police knock but get no answer, so they leave a business card on the front door, asking the resident to please contact them so they may download any possible video evidence.
After completing their canvass, investigators are about to head back to the station. But before they leave, they're approached by a young woman who says she needs to speak to them.
They said, "Okay, who are you?" And she said, "I'm Gwen Anderson."
She was concerned. "Can you tell me what's going on? Have you found him? Is he okay?"
Gwen explains that she's Martel's ex-girlfriend, and even though they'd broken up a couple of years earlier, they'd remained close.
They were separated, but they still communicated.
She tells the police the last time she had heard from Martel was around 1:30 p.m. on Friday afternoon.
She hadn't been able to reach him in several days, so she figured she'd come and check in person.
Detectives are immediately suspicious of Gwen's story.
The fact that they had been broken up for so long and she was still showing up to his apartment, it just didn't seem right.
At this time, we didn't know who was involved, and it wouldn't be far-fetched to believe that there was some kind of dispute between her and the man she was separated from.
Could Gwen be the same woman Martel's neighbor saw outside his apartment around the time of the murder?
Knowing that the neighbor across from the victim's apartment had seen this female banging on a door, we really wanted to talk to Miss Anderson and get as much information from her as possible.
But when detectives inform Gwen that Martell is dead, she breaks down in tears.
She became so upset that they weren't really even able to continue interviewing her at the scene.
Detectives tell her to take her time, compose herself, and they'll schedule a time to speak with her at the station.
After returning to police headquarters, investigators continue poring over the case.
Check out this report from Friday night.
Police uncovered that a 911 call was placed at the apartment complex around the same time that Martell was killed.
San Antonio 911, do you need police, fire, or EMS?
I need police now.
The caller said she was afraid her ex-boyfriend had been injured.
She's standing outside, is unable to reach him, and can't get inside.
Do you hear him?
No, he's not responding. There's a hole in his door, and I don't know what's going on.
There's a hole in the door?
Yes.
And you don't have a key?
No, ma'am, I don't.
But it's what the caller says next that sends alarm bells ringing.
Okay, and your name?
She says, "My name is Gwen Anderson."
Detectives investigating the murder of San Antonio rapper Martell DeRuin have just learned that a woman claiming to be his ex-girlfriend made a 911 call on the night he was killed.
I need police now.
Okay, and your name?
She says, "My name is Gwen Anderson."
She claimed that she needed to have someone check in an apartment because she thought he might be hurt.
He's not responding, and there's a hole in his door, and I don't know what's going on.
But according to the report, police eventually chalked it up to a prank call.
She hangs up and refuses to pick up any of the attempts by the 911 operator to call her back.
When officers responded to that apartment complex, she was gone, nowhere to be found, so they weren't able to even check on Martell that night, which is why he was not found until that following Tuesday.
If Gwen had made the 911 call from that night, why didn't she mention it earlier?
That was very, very suspicious to the detectives.
The police are suspicious as to why Gwen Anderson failed to mention any of this. Was she trying to hide something?
But when investigators bring Gwen in to ask her about the phone call, she seems puzzled.
The detectives confronted Gwen Anderson with that information. She was very confused. She had no idea what they were talking about.
Gwen tells the detectives she did not make a 911 call.
You're telling us this is not you?
San Antonio 911, do you need police, fire, or EMS?
I need police now.
And she said, "That is not me. That is not me who made that phone call." Gwen reiterated several times that there was no way that she could ever do anything to harm Martell.
Gwen admits that their relationship wasn't perfect, even before the breakup.
She tells them that, yes, there were problems in their relationship.
He was suffering from PTSD as a result of his military service. She admits that they did have arguments that turned physical.
But Gwen says they always found their way back to each other after some time apart.
But she says she was still in love with him.
She knew him inside and out. She knew that he was struggling with some mental health issues, and that didn't change the way she felt about him. They were young love. They grew up together. I think Gwen always thought that somewhere down the line there would be an opportunity for the two of them to get back together again because they were soulmates.
But is Gwen telling the truth?
The number that made the 911 call was registered to a burner phone. So at this point, they couldn't confirm or deny that Gwen made the call.
Is there anybody who can verify your whereabouts on Friday night?
No, I was at home by myself.
Detectives was suspicious of her story, but they didn't have enough evidence to keep her in custody.
However, before cutting her loose, police asked Gwen about what else was going on in Martell's life.
They ask her, do you know of any other woman that Martel has been dating lately?
He had told her that he was dating a young lady by the name of Sasha.
Her full name is Sasha Scar.
Gwen says, based on what Martel told her, he and Sasha were having serious issues in their relationship.
Martel would share with her the fact that this relationship with Sasha was pretty stressful. They would fight and argue quite a bit. And I think he even mentioned to her before that he was wanting to get out of that relationship.
At that point, detectives shift their attention to Martel's new girlfriend, Sasha.
And when detectives plug Sasha's name into their police database, they make an alarming discovery.
Miss Sasha is out on bond.
She was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Her last boyfriend had ended up dead.
After speaking with Martel DeRuin's ex-girlfriend, Gwen Anderson, San Antonio detectives have a new suspect in his murder, his current girlfriend and music protege, Sasha Scar.
According to Gwen, Sasha and Martel had a pretty tumultuous relationship that he was trying to get out of.
Now police records have revealed this isn't Sasha's first brush with the law.
Detectives start delving into Miss Sasha's past, and they find some very disturbing information.
In 2019, Sasha was charged in connection to the homicide of her last boyfriend.
Sasha's then boyfriend had been shot and killed, and another man had been seriously injured.
21 years old, and she's been involved in the death of 2 of her boyfriends.
The incident report states that on November 29, 2019, Austin police officers responded to reports of a shooting near a local parking lot.
When they arrived, police discovered Sasha Scar alongside her 21-year-old boyfriend, Andrew Bass, who was suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest.
Paramedics attempted to perform CPR on Andrew, but it was too late.
He was ultimately pronounced dead at the scene.
Moments later, law enforcement received another call for help.
While police are with Sasha and Andrew, another 911 call comes in from a nearby liquor store. The caller says another man has come in with gunshot wounds to his leg and to his chest.
While the second victim was rushed to the hospital, police questioned Sasha.
Sasha told police that she had gone with Andrew to buy marijuana from a man she did not know.
I was just sitting in the car, and then I heard gunshots.
When she runs to see what is going on, she finds Andrew wrestling with another man. She said Andrew told her to grab the gun and the bag of marijuana.
This other guy ran off.
During her interview, Sasha was adamant that the drug deal was set up by her boyfriend.
I didn't know any of this was gonna happen.
She said she was just tagging along.
But when police interviewed the other man who'd been shot, Phil Smith, they heard a very different story.
Don't believe anything she's saying.
He said, no, this is what happened. I'm friends with Sasha. Here's my phone. See, she set up a drug buy. She showed up with another male. They tried to rob me.
He said Sasha was in on the whole thing from the beginning.
Empty your pockets, Phil.
Realizing that he was being robbed, the man grabbed his own gun, and the 2 men exchanged shots.
They end up wrestling on the ground.
Sasha eventually grabbed Phil's gun and he ran to the liquor store for help.
When police investigate further, they discover the evidence lines up with Phil's version of events.
Sasha was lying about the altercation.
It was definitely a planned robbery and attack on this young man.
Ultimately, she was convicted of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a first-degree felony.
Then in January 2020, 1 year before Martel was killed, she was released on bond.
We knew there that she definitely had a propensity for violence, so we wanted to make sure that we tracked her down.
And when detectives look through Sasha's recent addresses, they make a surprising connection.
We found out that she used to live on O'Connor Road here in San Antonio.
O'Connor Road. That sounds familiar.
That call on Friday night to 911, the caller initially gave the street name as being on O'Connor Road and then stopped herself.
It's 16735 O'Connor Road, not O'Connor, La Cantera Parkway.
Did Sasha Scar make the 911 call from Martel's apartment, posing as Gwen Anderson?
Now I'm starting to put it together.
But tracking down their new prime suspect will be easier said than done.
We had to find Sasha Scar. The family was really digging in. They knew it was important to find her, and it was difficult. We didn't know where she was.
The police can't find her anywhere.
Sasha is not answering the phone. When police visit her previous address, they find out that she no longer lives there.
As patrol officers continue scouring the city for Sasha, detectives receive word that their forensic analyst has managed to unlock Martel's cell phone.
We did have Mr. DeRuin's cell phone, and we were able to pinpoint messages that were between him and Sasha on the night of January 22nd.
Looks like these came through at about the same time the neighbors heard that fight Friday night.
The texts give investigators a first-hand look at an argument that was spiraling out of control.
Martel was sending Sasha a long rant about how he caught her talking to another man and how disgraceful he found her behavior to be.
The text messages also point to a physical altercation between the couple that night.
He said, "Yes, you attacked me. I defended myself."
Martel wrote, "You attacked me, all because I asked you to leave."
Shortly thereafter, he said, "You should be locked up in jail for the rest of your life. That's where you belong."
It sounded as if Martel was kicking Sasha out and ending their relationship.
The messages prove Sasha was in a heated dispute with Martel on the night he was killed, but it's still no smoking gun.
Police have no airtight evidence that Sasha fired the shot that took Martel's life.
The evidence is still circumstantial.
Until detectives get a call from a new witness.
San Antonio Homicide Unit.
Investigators receive a call from one of Martel's neighbors, the man who has a doorbell camera installed at his apartment.
This person did allow us to look at it.
On the video, they see Sasha Scar walking in front of Martel's apartment with a gun in her hand.
That just blew this whole case wide open.
After discovering heated texts between Martel DeRuin and his girlfriend Sasha Scar from the night he was killed, San Antonio police have zeroed in on the 21-year-old rapper as their prime suspect.
Mr. DeRuin was texting her, and it obviously led to this big fight.
It became crystal clear that a physical altercation did occur inside the home.
And thanks to newly obtained ring footage from one of Martel's neighbors, police now have their smoking gun.
The Ring video camera, the value of that evidence in this case cannot be understated.
We were able to see that on the footage, she was carrying a cell phone in her left hand and a handgun in her right hand.
Investigators are stunned by the video, not only about how concrete and undeniable this piece of evidence is, but also how nonchalant Sasha appears, walking with this gun in her hand and texting on her cell phone.
On the recording, investigators can even hear Sasha placing the 911 call San Antonio police received on the night Martel died.
We actually heard her make the 911 call where she even claims to be Miss Anderson.
I'm trying to get in my apartment, but I'm not able to get in.
She was trying to frame Martell's ex, Gwen, for committing this crime.
As far as detectives are concerned, this is just undeniable proof that Sasha shot Martell.
Once we were confident that she is our suspect, we obtained an arrest warrant fairly quick.
But there's one problem. Investigators still have no idea where Sasha is.
The manhunt's on. We're looking for Sasha. We've got to find her.
When detectives tried to trace Sasha's cell phone, they determined that the device had been switched off.
So we asked for help from the Marshal Service to track her down.
Meanwhile, detectives start reaching out to the people who know Sasha best.
We did have some people come forward, actual friends of Sasha, one claiming that she called him, he came and picked her up. We believe that was on the night of the 22nd.
She contacted me 2 days before. They was trying to come out here to Houston. He was very adamant about coming out here.
He gave us locations where he took her. It really wasn't helping too much at that time because she was still on the move.
Other friends say they've been trying to persuade Sasha to do the right thing.
Friends were coming forward saying they were trying to contact her and they were trying to convince her to turn herself in.
I keep calling her and it's going straight to voicemail. I can call her right now while you're on the phone and it's going to go straight to voicemail.
Finally, on February 6th, more than 2 weeks after Martell was killed, San Antonio police get the news they've been waiting for.
They receive word that Sasha has surrendered herself.
Instead of taking the chance of being apprehended when she was least expecting it, she decided to turn herself in.
When I found out that she had turned herself in, my thought was she'd be willing to talk. She'd be willing to explain to me what happened on that Friday night with Martell. I go to the jail to meet with her in hopes that she'll provide a statement. I advise her of her rights and tell her why I'm there.
Okay, tell me what happened, Sasha.
But Sasha doesn't say a word.
She refuses to answer any questions.
She won't give a statement. She decides she doesn't want to talk to me, and she asks for an attorney.
This is your chance to come clean.
Give me a lawyer.
Okay, if that's what you want.
Yet even without a confession, investigators feel confident in the case they've built.
They charged Sasha with murder.
From there, it's my job now to put everything together and to present it to the district attorney's office. The family wanted justice for Martell. That's what we needed to focus on next.
When Sasha's trial begins in August 2023, everyone finally gets the chance to hear her side of the story.
Sasha took the witness stand during her murder trial. That doesn't happen very often, so I was kind of surprised that she did.
What she has to say leaves the whole courtroom speechless.
According to Sasha, Martell's death was not a murder.
She never intended to kill Martell.
She says it was a terrible accident.
In August of 2023, 23-year-old Sasha Scar is standing trial for the murder of her rapper boyfriend, Martell DeRuin.
Getting the evidence that we got was it was amazing. Rarely do we get video footage immediately after a crime where we've got the suspect carrying a murder weapon.
But once she takes the stand in her own defense, Sasha makes a brazen claim.
Sasha said she never intended to kill Martell.
According to Sasha, Martell's death wasn't murder. It was a terrible accident.
Sasha tells the court that the night of January 22nd started out like any other.
Sasha says that they were having a good time that night, until she answered a FaceTime call from a man who wanted to discuss a music venture with her.
Hey, what's up?
Who's that?
He's just interested in my music.
According to Sasha, that call set Martell off.
She tried to just brush the conversation off and just go to bed, but Martell was too upset. He wasn't having it.
I can't believe you talked to another man while you in my apartment.
It's not even like that.
Sasha says the argument escalated to a physical fight on the bed.
She says he just jumped on her and attacked her and started beating her.
Get off of me! She said he was hitting me, choking me to the point that I couldn't breathe.
In the midst of the struggle, the bed frame broke and Martell was thrown to the ground. Sasha says she seized that opportunity to grab his gun from the closet.
She grabbed the gun and ran from the bedroom into the kitchen.
When Martell pursued her, Sasha says she began throwing glasses and dishes just to put distance between the two.
But she says Martell was relentless.
She said she'd fled out of the apartment. She said she was barefooted, she was frantic, she was trying to call someone to come and get her.
After she was able to cool off for a few minutes, Sasha went back to the apartment to get her things, but found that the door was locked. She started yelling and banging on the door, telling Martell to let her in to get her things.
Martell, just give me my shoes and I'll be out of here.
Sasha says that's when the gun went off.
Martell!
She says she never intended to pull the trigger, but somehow, as she was banging the door, a shot was fired.
On the surface, Sasha's story seems plausible enough. But according to the prosecution, it's nothing but a pack of lies.
They contend that Martell's death was no accident.
They say that Sasha had every intention of killing Martell.
He tried to end things with her and lock her out of his apartment, but she wasn't having it.
Martell, open the door right now.
And once she heard Martell on the other side of the door, she raised the gun, shot through the door in a deliberate act of murder.
She wasn't there to get her things. She was there to kill him.
After just 2 short hours of deliberation, the jury reaches a decision.
They found Sasha guilty of murder.
In the state of Texas, we do not have different degrees of murder. It's just murder, and that's what Sasha was found guilty of.
Sasha Scar receives a sentence of 55 years behind bars.
It was just a big sigh of relief for me. Of course, there is that part of some sorrow for the family, but I was happy that they were able to get the justice that they deserved.
Even if justice has been served, Sasha Scar's violent actions can never be undone.
I really felt for Martell. This man was truly just an innocent victim to this situation.
Sasha had a lot of choices that night. She could have easily called the police and said, "Hey, there's been an altercation. Can you please come over here and stand by while I get my stuff?"
Instead, she chose to take the life of a man who was on the verge of accomplishing